Okay, hi everybody. David Fogel back with you, CEO of the Symphonina Foundation for another Symphonina Foundation podcast. And I'm joined today by Cheryl Engelhart. Cheryl, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's our pleasure. Cheryl just is fresh off of a orchestral performance of some of her work at Cornell University this last weekend. And I've known Cheryl for a little under a year now through all the Grammy machinations that we go through with the Symphonina Foundation. I got to meet her a little bit at one of the events that Donna A. Blasty was doing this last year for Mythologies and a few other people. So that was all great. Cheryl, I wanted to ask you, it's not everybody, I think, knows you for your work in orchestration. A lot of people know you for New Age or just piano playing in general. But let's talk about how you got into orchestration. Then we can kind of circle back to how you got started with music in the first place.
Orchestration was something that I kind of fell into by accident. My background was piano and composition and sort of music technology when it comes to film scoring and working in commercials. And I just started to, after I had graduated college and got into the commercial world, I was starting to get jobs that were looking at bigger sounds, right? More orchestral work. And I realized that it was kind of a gap in my education. And so I did a little bit of post-grad work at Juilliard specifically for orchestration. And as soon as I did, it was so funny. Like the jobs requesting like orchestrations like started to show up as soon as I enrolled. I was like, okay, universe, gotcha.
Good timing, yeah.
So I did a little bit of that work, and most of the orchestration work I had done historically was to really sweeten tracks that I was working on or commissions for. I did some trailer music for a company, like movie trailers, like 2-minute pieces that followed the trailer music formula and that wanted that big orchestral sound with a live band and all the things, or on my own records. So it was really, my own projects. I have done string quartets, and I actually arrange choral and string quartet music kind of similarly in terms of just how I write for them. And I have a very deep background in choral music in particular. So it felt like a natural extension to go to string quartets. And then when I was working with string quartet, I had some pieces that I was like, this could be bigger. And then got some opportunities to work with the Budapest Scoring Orchestra. And then it kind of just turned into, my first commission was with Cornell University's orchestra that was actually writing for a specific orchestra, not for my own project or film score or something. So it makes sense that I'm not known in orchestration because I don't do a ton of it, but I love it. And when the project is right, I'm happy to dive into it and use it anywhere I can to kind of elevate the creativity from as an artist. So
I have a personal question to ask you. As you may know, as part of our task at the Symphonina Foundation of spreading the joy of symphonic music to young audiences around the world. We release an album every year, and we've used the Budapest Scoring Orchestra on both of our albums, and we'll be doing that again for this year. And we've recorded pieces that have piano, but we've layered that piano in separately later, just for studio engineering purposes. But I'm curious what your experience was playing piano. I remember seeing a video of you performing with them. I hope that was all, not photoshopped. It was all real.
Oh,
So
that was
otherwise
real.
it's going to be a bad question, but yeah, I'm sure it was real. Right? I'm just kidding. So tell me a little bit about what your experience was playing with them.
Oh gosh, it was really amazing. So I had written this piece for piano and string quartet, for Dallas String Quartet specifically. And then a couple of years after playing it, I was like, it needs to be bigger. So I arranged it for and orchestrated it, co-orchestrated it, and then got this great slot with Budapest Scoring Orchestra. I was already in Europe. So I was like, I'm going to take a train with my little dog here and go from Geneva to Budapest. And it was this whole experience. But I knew that I wanted to play the piano part. And the funny thing was I was spending the summer in France because that's where my husband works in the summer. And I realized I was like, I need to practice this piano piece. It is not an easy part. I was like, what was I thinking writing this? And what was I thinking? I never play with orchestras. What was I thinking that I wanted to be an artist on the recording? But I was like, all right, here we go. I couldn't find from any pictures of the Budapest Scoring Orchestra where the piano was in the room. So I would sit down and practice this piece for about a half an hour looking only to the left. And then I would practice a half an hour only looking to the right because I didn't know where the conductor was going to be. And then I would practice half an hour looking straight, preparing myself because page turns are so different depending on where you are looking, for me at least.
Hmm.
And so I was just like preparing myself for anything when I showed up. I'm like, I'm not used to playing to a conductor. I'm not, there were so many things I wasn't used to, but it ended up being, I mean, Michelle Rakers was the conductor. She conducts the President's Band, and she's so clear in her conduct. It was a delight. Like, it was absolutely a delight to sit there. And the Budapest Scoring Orchestra, they are sight reading this piece, which was just impressive in and of itself, just to be working with an orchestra on that
Absolutely.
level.
Yep.
And we took it letter by letter, and it wasn't, I was sitting there thinking I had to play the whole thing through perfectly, and I was like, oh, we are doing this like we normally record, which is in parts and making sure we get this clean before we get. So it ended up like the second I sat down at the piano there and rehearsed it with them once, I was like, okay, this is great. Like, it just, and she was just slightly center left of my eyesight, which was perfect. Like, that was where I was most comfortable. So it worked out really well. I hit all the little trouble spots that I wanted to hit, and we got I think it just came out exactly. I couldn't have asked for anything better. So my perfection itself
that's
was very
wonderful.
happy.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I was asking Chaitan Tierra, who's a touring pianist and a co-founder of San Diego Piano Academy, who played on our first album. He's a friend of Gary Gray's, who's co-founder. This is a question that was prompted to me by a little video I saw of Dave Koz and David Benoit driving around in Dave Koz's car, where the two Daves there. So I got to think. So Koz asked David Benoit, "What's it like when you're traveling to a new gig, and every time you get to a new gig, it's a new piano, it's a new instrument? Like, if you're a sax player, I play piano, sax, guitar, right? So I can appreciate this. If you are playing a sax or a violin or whatever, it's your instrument and you know it and it goes with you. But
Yeah.
as a piano player, you show up at that Budapest Scoring Orchestra and it's not the piano that you practiced on.
Yeah.
So what is it that you do when you're getting to a new piano to try to acclimate yourself to that new instrument as quickly as possible?
Yeah, I prepared for that too. Preparation, man, it's key. So when I was in this little town, Chamonix in France for the summer leading up to the recording session, I went to a local music school and I was like, listen, you're out of session, but there's still lessons. Like, can I come every couple days and rehearse? And they ended up waiving their fee for me to come in. So, and every time I came, I was like, I want a different room. I want a different room. And some days I played a keyboard, like an actual synthesizer. Some days I was on their grand piano. Sometimes I was on an upright. And I just was like, I can't be a diva about the piano because I don't know what I'm walking into. I knew it was a grand piano. I knew I think I had seen someone that it was a Steinway. I'm not even sure, but I was like, give me the Yamahas, give me the whatevers, give me the, and I think that also came from like my years of touring with like my singer-songwriter pop band. Was just, I had my keyboard, but anytime there was a live piano there, I just had to not be preshy about my piano, and being able to play with, the fully weighted hammer setup, or the 68 key keyboard that the venue had because they didn't have anything else if I wasn't bringing mine. So just being able to adapt was part of the preparation. And I knew that I didn't want to get used to one feel and then show up and be like, oh, my fortes feel really different, or my pianos are like, I'm not hearing the note. So just, I practiced the piece like all fortissimo, and then I would practice it all
That's a
pianissimo.
good one.
Like,
Yeah, yeah.
so just making sure that I could feel the notes no matter what piano was in front of me. So again, that came down to the preparation.
Yeah, Chaitin was saying if you get about 15, 20 minutes of drill time ahead of time on the piano, you can adapt. But I
Yeah,
think that's
which I
probably
had.
that's good. I think that's function
Yeah,
also of like how good you are, because adaptation to something is also a skill to learn, right? So what you just did in
totally.
prep is awesome. I was saying to him, I was playing piano for my wife's sister's wedding last year, and they wanted classical. So like, okay, I'm going to play you Mozart Sonata 1 and a few Clementi sonatinas, just light stuff. But still, I wanted to practice that, and I practiced a lot on my own piano. But then you get in the venue and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm having such a trouble trying to keep this thing soft where I want to keep it soft because it's a really loud piano.
Yep.
And no one complained to me, but I knew, it wasn't what I was looking for. So I think like for me, I would need to do exactly what you just suggested, get on a lot of things and figure out what is the skill to adapt yourself. So for all those piano players out there, keep that in mind as something else
Yeah.
to practice, as if we don't have enough to practice in our day,
Right. No, it
you
was
know.
great. I was able to show up a day before, and while they were setting up mics, I was like, "Can I come in and play this?" And everyone, the engineers there were totally fine. So I got 20 minutes, almost a half an hour to just run it as many times through the day before, and then of course the day there, I was able to. And we were luckily my session was right after lunch, so obviously I got there early and was like, "I'm going to play it a
Yeah.
couple of times." So I was very comfortable with the piano by the time I sat down, but I didn't know that was going to be the case. So, preparation.
You have to be prepared. Yeah, there's one time I played a gig with a piano for a friend, and they did make sure the piano was in tune, but none of the pedals worked. So
Oh,
that
yeah, that's
that
fun.
was that was an adventure. Hey, let's go back to your Cornell University orchestral piece. Why Cornell University?
Cornell is my alma mater. That's where I was a biology and a music major. And last year, when I was working on this piece, Quantum Entanglement, the orchestral version of Quantum Equivalent, which was written for Dallas String Quartet, I reached out to them because I thought I would want to record it and maybe submit it as an orchestral performance for the Grammys category. So I was like, all right, we have a little bit of a time thing. And the conductor of the Cornell Orchestra, Gabriela Sofia Gomez, Estevez Gomez, is incredible. And she's 1 year in, now I think 2 years in. And we started working together. And it turned out that there's a lot more red tape with universities to get things passed and, all the things. So it kind of didn't happen in the timeline. And last February, trying to figure it all out, I got this invitation to Budapest Scoring Orchestra. I'm like, you know what, let me take this piece to them and just stay in touch. But then in the fall, she got in touch with me and said, hey, our March 2nd, 2025 concert is going to be this space themed concert program that we're collaborating with the Carl Sagan Institute, which is based out of Cornell University. Carl Sagan taught there for many, many, many years.
Yep.
And they were using footage from NASA and all this cool stuff. And they did part of Holst's Planets, and they had a concerto winner. And so they had all these other pieces, and a lot of them were really big. And she was like, they're big and bombastic, if you know Holst's, like Jupiter and everything. She's like, so we want to commission you to write a piece for this that kind of fills a gap. And that's the kind of commission I love. Like, what does your program already do and what's missing? And then I can come in and kind of work with the orchestra and say, okay, what are your stronger sections? What are your weaker sections? How can I write specifically for them? And I came up to Cornell in the fall and had a really inspired lunch with her and the director of the Carl Sagan Institute, Dr. Lisa Kaltenegger. And she's this brilliant astrophysicist who was telling me about all these I have 4 pages of notes about TRAPPIST-1, planet systems and all these other things that she was so passionate about. And I was able to kind of formulate the story and bring in the human experience, and the strings represent the humans. And then there's sort of the woodwinds representing the potential life out there. And then what happens if they were to find each other and, try to align, and there's a little dissonance trying to get their themes aligned. And then at the end, there's this lovely, optimistic, harmonious melody that comes in. So there's this 7-note theme, 1 note representing each of the planets in this TRAPPIST-1 system, which apparently is the most similar to our solar system. So has the highest potentiality for life, which they were really excited about. So I was able to bring that 7-note theme in and then retrograde it and flip it and do all sorts. So it's sort of out there existing the whole way. So it was a really cool collaboration in a lot of very dorky ways for me, beyond just orchestrating this for a college university.
Astrophysicists like the dorky stuff. That's good. That's great. Was there a recording made? Is it something that we'll be able to watch?
They did record it. This was just a couple days ago. So, I have it on my phone. I recorded it, but they do have a professional recording. So I'm just waiting for those files. We'll be able to take a listen. I don't know if they're going to post it somewhere, the video and stuff, but I'll be interested to see. And they were talking about actually doing a live recording. They have a new recording space for orchestras at the school. So they were thinking of using this sort of as like a trial experience for the orchestra, which would be cool for them to sort of see how that process is different than a live performance.
Yeah. Do you work on the engineering yourself? Do you do it all yourself? Do you collaborate with other engineers? How do you handle post-production?
I used to work in a hip hop recording studio. I've learned my way around studios and patch bays and all those things. But at this point, I'm kind of like, even my score prep, I'm like, let's find the people who are top notch at this, and let's work with people who are super skilled. My days of I can do all the things, so I should, are very over. I would much prefer to leave it to the pros who are quicker, faster, and going to just do it better. Even if I've had a little experience, I can talk the language and assist. And if you tell me to plug the XLR cable into the channel 3, cool, I can do that for you. But
Right.
I would definitely bring in engineers to do that, so I can really focus on what I'm there to do.
Okay. And then you go back and forth with them sort of in a collaborative way until you get the result that you want, or how does it work?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. What do you do, all independent releases, or how do your releases work?
Yep. Everything is independent as of now.
Do you like it that way?
I do. I haven't, it's kind of like, it's nice to know that I own the masters. It's nice to know that there's no red tape when it comes to licensing for me and performances. And it's, when I'm collaborating, it's an easier half of the, just on the admin side, it's a lot easier to deal with. I know in this day and age with getting fractions of a penny per stream, sharing that with a label that's actually not doing much more than I would be doing on my own is not interesting to me. It never has been interesting. At the same time, if I was approached by someone who's like, this is this great deal and we'll front you six figure, like that, does that even happen? I don't know. Like I would definitely be thinking twice, but right now this is just kind of how it's been for 22 years. So it's kind of like, all right, if it ain't broke.
And if you're having fun doing it, then that's good. So I think
Fun is one word to, yep.
Okay. Well, there's probably some angst too, but that's part of the creative process and the non-creative process. So that's all good. So what are you working on this year?
I do a lot of choral work as well. I work with some social justice choirs and I have a publisher, E.C. Shermer, that I love writing for. So that's on the docket. The American Choral Directors Association conference is coming up. I'm headed out there. I'm working on a new age album that's like new age ambient, but I'll be bringing in like my organic elements are piano and voice and string writing for string quartet, bringing that in to mix with the ambient textures that my writing partner, Jem Ossett, is bringing to the table. And I'm really excited about it. It's a really interesting collaboration. We work really differently. And I think that can just, once we get aligned with like who we are as artists, to bring that to the music and have 1 + 1 = more than 2. It's kind of what we're doing. So
do I remember correctly that Jem is in Australia?
Jem is in Australia. She splits time between Los Angeles and Australia. Recently, she's been more in Australia. So working together with a 16-hour time difference is a thing, which is, especially when one of us is like cranking and wants some files or something from the other. It's kind of you wake up to it and then going back and forth. But it's cool because it allows you to kind of have some space between what's getting done, and you step away and then you have to listen, you have to wait. And so it's really teaching me to kind of be in a different kind of flow. So it's a wonderful collaboration. Absolutely wonderful.
How long have you been collaborating together?
We started working on a track for a project that she had early 2024, and then it went really well. And so that kind of spurred the like, hey, let's do a couple more. And then we're like, hey, we're making an album. Like we should just turn this into an album. And so that's kind of the genesis of the project.
It's great. I think a lot of collaboration. Well, there's always been collaboration, but I think one of the positive things, if we can point to some out of COVID, is there's a lot more collaborations that have come. People, I think, have found other people wherever they are in the world through Zoom or social media, whatever, and it's we're able to work with just about anybody anywhere.
I mean, we've really, like, she was in Australia and then I was in France last summer and then she had gone to Greece and then where did she go? She went, and then I was in New York and she's in LA, and like, we were just all over the place doing this album. And one of the equinox, the eclipse, the solar eclipse last year that happened, I went outside and I took the 2 hours that it was happening and I wrote a piece called Eclipse during the eclipse. And then there was a lunar eclipse in the fall, and that's the day that she mixed that track and was like working her parts to the track that it was, going back and forth. So we kind of had this like polar opposite kind of workflow with these lunar events, which is kind of cool. So
good celestial timing there, that's for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. I did want to come back to something where you decided to go to Juilliard to take orchestral classes. And I wanted to ask you, how did you choose Juilliard over some other place, or just try to teach yourself through the various educational opportunities that are available online or in books or in other things?
Well, it was a long time ago, so not so much stuff was online. It was 2011 when I...
Okay, fair enough. Sure.
So I was in New York, so I was looking at what are the best schools in New York? So I just applied to Juilliard, got in, and if I didn't, I probably would have gone to NYU or Manhattan School of Music. Like, I would have looked elsewhere, but I knew that I wanted to do something in person. And the first class I took was, the final exam was the Juilliard Orchestra sight reading, an orchestration of a previously unorchestrated piece of music. So some people took like a percussion piece and orchestrated it for full orchestra. I took Gnarls Barkley's Crazy and orchestrated it for full orchestra, which is available on YouTube. I knew that I wanted to be able to apply it practically. And so knowing that that was part of that course was like, all right, I'm going to get to see if I can actually do this versus just have the theory and the writing part of it down. I wanted to see, okay, can I actually transpose all the clarinets and everything so that when someone's sitting in front of it in sight reading, it doesn't sound like something John Cage came up with.
Right. Yes.
Yeah.
And when you get into a program like that, do they start at the beginning, or do they start like with an assumption that you already know the range of the instruments, you know which ones are transposing, you know how they sound, you know everything like that that's basic?
I think we were beyond the basics. I had a little like cheat sheet book for ranges that I still use. Like I'm not going to memorize that kind of, like it's a little one page of all the stuff. But I think, it was about all the instruments working together. It wasn't a composition class, at least the main one that had this exam at the end. It was really like, these instruments you double together. These are the things that you don't do. This is how this balances. These are the tunings. This is what's going to sound wonky if you do, really how the orchestra works together inside of a composition, as well as ranges and the technicalities of orchestra, limitations and whatnot.
Yeah, I think also, with samples that we have today from the various libraries that are, I can't say all excellent, but the excellent ones are all excellent. We can try things and see what sounds good or not so good to our own ears. But for me, let's see if you agree with this. Like, there's almost any combination that could sound good in the right setting, with some exceptions maybe. But I think it's good to keep an open mind about trying things and not always come to the formula solution that might be given to you about what sounds good or doesn't sound good. But I don't know what your experience might be with that.
Well, that's kind of why I love New Age, because I feel like the parameters, I have 4 piano pop singer-songwriter albums out, and there is a structure to a good pop song. There is a lyrical, there are things that have to happen inside of that world. And same thing even with traditional classical music, like there are certain parameters. But for New Age, like once I kind of found myself accidentally there and seeing the stuff I was creating doing well inside of that genre, I realized that I could do the weird stuff but bring in the trained piano, orchestral, choral elements and arrangement that I love, but I didn't have to necessarily follow. I mean, you'll never hear perfect fifths in any of my music. Like that got too ingrained in me in my classical training. So other than that, I really do try to like let the music do what it is, and if it's weirder than okay, cool. I'm technically, and I really do identify inside of being a New Age artist who brings in elements of classical orchestral arrangement, choral arrangement, piano, blah blah blah. So I think that if I was trying to be a strict classical composer, like I would be running into a lot of roadblocks and possibly dislike if I was trying to brand myself as something other than I'm a New Age artist that happens to be trained in orchestration and loves bringing in these elements when I can, when it fits the piece.
I think part of the joy of bringing symphonic music to young audiences is to remind everybody that symphonic music is not just classical music and it's not just film music, but symphonic music can enhance probably almost anything if it's done well. So, Cheryl, we appreciate your efforts along those lines. If people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
I am Cheryl B. Engelhart, CBE Music everywhere. CBEmusic.com is my website, and I like most engaging on Instagram. CBE Music is where I am there. So feel free to follow and message me or say hi. Great.
We'll do it. Cheryl, thanks so much for your time today. We'll listen to some more of your music on the way out here.
Amazing. Thank you.